Hello, I'm Angie Austin with Oil and Gas 360, and we are at EnerCom's 2016 Oil and Gas Conference, and we are joined by John Hofmeister. He is the founder and CEO of Citizens for Affordable Energy and the former president of Shale Oil Company. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's talk about this. After 2 years of lower oil prices, how do the shale producers fit into the global oil picture?
I think the shale producers are essential to the global oil picture. I don't accept any of the nonsense that Saudi Arabia is trying to shut down U.S. shale, because number one, they can't. Number two, they wouldn't want to, because they have their own shale to develop. Number three, the issue on low oil price has nothing to do with shale. But it is an opportunity for shale producers to learn how to be more productive, lower cost, more efficient use of capital, all the things that entrepreneurial shale companies are good at. And while it's been horrible, I've told people this is the most difficult period I can remember in the oil and gas industry in the US, with 400,000 people laid off, with bankruptcies coming at us week after week after week, with the continued and prolonged geopolitical issues in the Middle East continuing to hold down the price. This is testing the will and testing the genius of everyone in the industry, and it's not over yet. So the next 3 to 6 months, I think, will continue to be difficult. But when it comes to the future of global oil, shale is essential to the world enjoying the fruits of available, affordable, and sustainable energy. If I didn't believe that, I wouldn't say it.
Right. Oh, I believe that. All right, let's talk, John, about what's next for oil as an international commodity. Flesh that out a little more.
Well, in the first instance, we can't go on the way we are with the Saudis, the Iranians, and the Russians continuing to ship money with every barrel of oil they produce that otherwise could and should be spent on running their countries. Somewhere between $50 and $70 a barrel is being shipped out of the national treasuries of those three countries to maintain this artificial quest for market share. It is pure political pettiness and fear. And let me emphasize fear. Fear that the Iranians are on a mission and the Russians are helping them, and the only safety valve is Saudi Arabia, trying to protect particularly the Sunni world from being devastated by the Shia world. And so I admire the Saudis for what they're doing, but it's costing them hundreds of billions of dollars to maintain this so-called market share strategy that they're on, when really they're trying to protect the Middle East from its own self-destruction. And so that's a worry. So the future of the international oil has got to come through the Middle East. They have to come to grips with reality. And if they don't, we will see this continue until Russia, Iran, and Saudi Arabia have no money left, because they will have spent it all on so-called market share. I don't think they're going to let that happen.
Right.
Meanwhile, I think we're in a technology revolution. That's not just a shale revolution, but it's a technology revolution that deals with everything from carbon management to well design and well management, to material science, to productivity and labor management, to all the tools and equipment that we use. And there's another profound factor involving international oil, and that is, whatever anyone may say negative about oil and natural gas as traditional hydrocarbon fossil fuels, more people are alive today, more people are better fed today, more people are better clothed today, and more people have more medical care and treatment through particularly pharmaceuticals and other medical devices, because we have oil and natural gas. Alex Epstein has written a wonderful book called The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels.
I just wrote that down. Someone just referred that book to me.
he tells a quite compelling story. Yes, there are negative attributes of oil and gas, but there are also negative attributes of hamburgers and hot dogs.
Right, right.
If you have too many of them.
Exactly.
And so I'm not trying to compare the negative attributes of molecules of fossil fuels with the fats of hot dogs and hamburgers.
Right.
But I am trying to say that managed well, using science, using human capability, the world is better off for the production and the consumption of oil and natural gas. And to the people who swear by keeping it in the ground and want to see an end to the oil and gas age, they will impoverish, they will sicken, they will ultimately see to it that the world's quality of life is diminished and deteriorated if they suddenly say keep it in the ground.
Right.
Because there is no alternative currently that can displace. If technology can move us in a different direction for the future, and I think it's generations of technology, then yes, the world will move on. We don't use horses the way we once did. We don't use a lot of products that have gone out of current favor. And so one day we may use less natural gas or oil, but because we found a better substitute. Right now we don't have that better substitute, so let's make the best of what we have, and let's keep technology moving forward for what we have next. I'm all for that. But this notion of putting a burden on the oil and gas companies to change quickly, to think that they're doing something immoral or wrong, that's just not real. That's not the way the world works. And there are more people better off because of oil and gas today than who are worse off.
Well, let's talk about the election. How will the upcoming elections affect the U.S. energy sector, in your opinion?
I think the current campaign that's taking place, and this is August 2016, so it's pre-Labor Day.
Right.
The current campaign that's taking place on both the part of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party is a waste of most people's time. It is utterly foolish to see the kind of rhetoric or to hear the kind of rhetoric that's out there from the left or the right. It's all ad hominem attack. Attack the person, tear down the individual. You know, this use of nicknames like Crooked Hillary or the unfitness of the Republican candidate, Donald Trump. It's nothing more than thinking the American people are stupid. And I defy any politician to treat the American people like they're as stupid as they are being treated today by both sides. Let me be, just frank as I can be. Both sides are trying to take advantage of an emotional campaign that is driven by aspects of the future of this country that aren't even worthy of discussing because the issues are so great. It's been demonstrated time and time again, and city after city after city in this country, which has had progressive Democratic Party leadership for decades, are struggling to survive. But no one's declaring their policies have failed. But in fact they have. And on the Republican side, there is such a very difficult issue of dividing people, dividing by class, dividing by ethnicity, dividing by social status, that is just driving us apart. Both parties need to be taken to the woodshed. Both parties need to have somebody crack them over the head to rediscover what is their purpose in life. So I'm very unhappy with the campaigns to date. I thought the conventions were disgraceful. I thought the country was the laughingstock of the world during both conventions because of the idiocy that was playing out on the part of both parties, and the candidates contributed to it. So we have a few months to get our act together. This country is not in a good place when 73% of the nation says we're going in the wrong direction.
Right.
We may have a currently somewhat popular president, But who's been in charge the last 8 years that 73% of the country says we're going in the wrong direction? Economic growth of 1 to 1.5% is not enough to replace even the value that's destroyed every quarter in terms of the aging of the housing stock, the aging of the infrastructure, the aging of the educational institutions of this country. So we're not going forward. We're at best not even standing still, but we're not degrading as quickly as we could otherwise be degrading. So if the election is not about fixing, improving, solving problems, then I think there's going to be 300 million people very, very disappointed, and several billion people ashamed of what the US has just done and frightened for the future of democracy. So I say it to the candidates, I say it to Mr. Trump, I say it to Mrs. Clinton, you better get your acts together, because otherwise you are going to disgrace and humble this country when this country should be leading, not falling into the trap that you all are leading us toward.
Well, I want to ask you one last question. What are you working on now? Not politics.
I recently became the chairman of Aran Energy Corporation, which is an Africa asset-focused company that is, in all respects, still in the startup mode, and we're trying to start up what could be a premier African-based E&P company listed on the New York Stock Exchange, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, and following all the SEC and all the FCPA rules and best practices that exist, trying to make a go of Africa in a very difficult market conditions in the industry. It's occupying a lot of my time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But it's a labor of love.
Right.
I think there's huge value to be created for the 4 African countries, Gambia, Ghana, Nigeria, and Kenya, that we have assets. A lot of people can get jobs. A lot of people will benefit in Africa from the economic investment that takes place. But like every startup company, we need cash, we have to manage our liquidity, and we need more equity infusion to do what we're capable of doing. So that's one of the things I'm working on. I'm also getting ready for another semester of teaching, where I teach at University of Houston and Kansas State University, a course in the next 50 years of energy and the environment. And I also focus on 2 other important boards in my life, Hunting PLC and A+, which is headquartered in Barcelona. So it's a busy life, plus grandchildren, plus other social responsibilities that I have.
Right. Well, wonderful. Are you enjoying the conference?
It's been great. Saw some old friends, met some new people. Everybody that's here, I think, is sort of on the edge, wondering what's next.
Yeah.
The uncertainties outweigh the certainties. But the one certainty that we will always stand by is we will produce more oil, we will produce more natural gas.
Well, John, a pleasure. Thank you so much, John. John Hofmeister, and as he just mentioned, now new position, president of Aran Energy Corporation. And I am Angie Austin with Oil and Gas 360. Thanks so much for joining us.